and I really appreciate you taking the time today.
My pleasure. Congratulations on your hard work, because I think it is important.
And so with that, if it's all right with you, we'll go ahead and get started.
Let's do it.
Why don't we start, if you could tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, and what you do.
I was born and raised in Bend, Oregon, and I left to go to college in 1980 when the world was melting down, when interest rates were an unbelievable 16%. And I was trained in forestry, and then I traveled all around the United States. I was in Alaska, the Midwest, the East Coast, the Southeast part of the United States, running manufacturing facilities. And 17 years ago, I moved back to Bend, my hometown, with my wife, who I met on the East Coast, and became a financial advisor. Bought my patriarch of our firm was my scoutmaster growing up, and I bought his firm, became a financial advisor, and I've been doing that for the last 17 years. I have 3 children, 2 girls and a boy, and I'm within 18 months of being an empty nester.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. And so the kids are off to school, and you'll have to figure out what to do with all the extra time.
Yes, we're having to figure out. My wife's been a stay-at-home mom for the hardest job in the world for the last 21 years, and she's working through that right now, and it's easier said than done, that's for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It is the unsung heroes of the world for sure. Folks taking care of the little ones and making sure that they grow up into great human beings. That's sort of the goal, right? And so we're here today to talk about your journey with multiple sclerosis and with Parkinson's disease. We'll start from when you first might have noticed that you had a few symptoms and maybe realized that you needed to seek some help.
Well, it was July of 2014. One morning I was making breakfast and I went to stick my hand in a bowl of eggs to scramble them up, and my hand wouldn't move, wouldn't whip the eggs. And my wife walked out about that time and said, "What's wrong?" And I started to lie to her and tell her nothing was wrong. And she said, "Don't you dare lie to me." And I said, "My hand won't work." And so I went to my general practitioner within a week and had x-rays and all that kind of stuff. And he set me down and said, "Well, I'm not sure what it was. What it is." He says, "I don't think it's neuroskeletal, and I'm going to send you to a neurologist." And I said, "Well, what could it be?" And he said, "Well, it could be a pinched nerve, it could be a brain tumor, it could be MS, it could be Parkinson's disease." He says, "I don't know." He said, "We'll find out." And he started to walk out of the room. And I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. You can't drop that on me and just walk out of the room." And he was a great man, Dr. Vargas, and he came back in and he sat down for a half an hour. We talked about what the process was going to be and to find out, and that everything was going to be okay. So I went to a neurologist in early July of 2014 and went through a series of tests, did a couple 3 MRIs, did a lumbar puncture, all those kinds of things. And then on Christmas Eve of 2014, I got on my bicycle at 7 o'clock in the morning and rode the 5 miles on a frosty morning to my neurologist to get my diagnosis. And I remember vividly riding on the way there thinking, am I going to tell my family before Christmas or after Christmas that I got a brain tumor and I'm going to die? And so I went to the doctor and he told me I had MS. I didn't have a brain tumor, which was a great relief, and that there was medications. And then we started down the path of finding out medications, and he put me on Tecfidera, which seemed to help and make things better. And I went along for a couple, 3 years with my having some impairment in my left hand and my dexterity, but nothing got progressively worse as far as balance and other things. And then about 3 years in and 23 years later, so 2018, I started having problems with balance, with my gait. I had brain fog. My hand got worse and worse, and I started dragging my leg, and those kind of things. I couldn't dress myself. And we went on vacation to Phoenix, Arizona. And at the end of our vacation one day, I couldn't get under the covers. I couldn't manipulate myself to get under the covers. And I freaked out and had anxiety and walked around all night, the hotel that we were in, and managed to get home and went to my neurologist. And he said, "Well, He said, let me try these drugs. And he tried different drugs on me. And we went through that for a couple, 3 months. And I precipitously went downhill. I got to the point where I couldn't drive. I couldn't dress myself. I couldn't function. I got severely depressed, which I'd never had in my life before, and got bad anxiety. And one day my wife and I went to my existing neurologist and said, I told him, I said, I'm depressed and I don't think about hurting myself, but I think about if this is all there is to life and this is how I'm going to be, is it really worth living? What should I do? And he gave me the 800 number to the county health department suicide line. And that made my wife very mad. And she grabbed my hand and drugged me out and took me to another neurologist. And we sat in the lobby for 4 hours until they could see us. And I have a great neurologist now that she told me, she says, I think you might have Parkinson's disease too. And so we went through a diagnosis process of that. She put me on a great drug, which is the gold standard, called Sinemet, or Carbidopa-Levidopa is its scientific name. And I've been improving ever since, to the point where I water ski, I ride my bike, I snow ski, I walk 6 miles every day. I played 149 rounds of golf last year, and I'm much better. And so it's not a death sentence. You just have to find the right way to treat your disease.
It was 2014, and that was sort of your, you noticed that you couldn't mix the eggs. Were there any signs before that, if you think back, that maybe there was an issue, that something that you might have missed in retrospect that could have been a sign or a symptom?
Oh yeah, I look back and I see all kinds of symptoms that I had. Some of them back in my early 30s, where I had a numb hand and my left hand again was numb and I had a hard time holding the pen. You just figure it's a pinched nerve. You're 18 and bulletproof and it's nothing bad, and you ignore it, and it eventually went away. And so I look back, I had many aha moments when I look back and I said, I understand what was going on then.
And then you mentioned that you started to get treatment with the Tecfidera. It worked for 3 years. What was your experience on Tecfidera? It seemed to work for a while and then it didn't. How did that go?
My Tecfidera, I had no side effects, none of the flushing or upset stomach problems that people have. It worked for about 3 years, and then my lesions in my brain from my MS became active again. And so my doctor took me off Tecfidera and wanted to put me on Ocrevus, but the insurance company didn't want to do that. And so they put me on the generic Rituxan, which has worked very well ever since. And I've had no activity in my lesions.
Oh, that's fantastic that the Rituxan did help. And despite the insurance not wanting to cover the Ocrevus, that
Right. And I understand they wanted to try Rituxan's, just sort of a generic version of it. And they wanted to try it first, and it worked. And so I've got no complaints or no bad will.
Understandable, and the fact that you're doing well today. And so were you ever able to disentangle sort of the impact on your life from the Parkinson's and from the MS? Can you recognize, perhaps in retrospect, when the Parkinson's was setting in?
Well, it's all sort of a blur and meshed together. One day I asked my neurologist, I said, is that MS or is it Parkinson's disease? And she goes, well, that's MS. And she starts rattling along, and she gets about halfway through and she says, or I guess it could be Parkinson's disease too. And so sometimes I don't know what symptoms which, because I have a tremor in my left hand. And when I get amped up and my adrenaline gets going and I get talking like this, I can make a great milkshake with my left hand. And so that's a symptom of MS. It can be MS or it can be Parkinson's disease. I tend to be, because when she put me on Carbidopa-Levidopa or Sinemet, I got better almost like that, and really pulled out and went from being in a very, very bad place, a very scary place. I look back in hindsight that I never ever want to go to again if I don't have to where I am today, in a much better, joyful place that I am. I look back and I think a lot of my symptoms have overriding been Parkinson's disease, not the MS. And MS is a contributor, but not the major thing that infects me or affects me day in and day out.
And that's great for others to know, right? I mean, they might be on an MS medication, they might experience the same thing that you've experienced with a worsening of illness, and it might not be the MS at all. Maybe the MS is under control, but something else has started to impact their lives. So I think that would be extraordinarily helpful for folks to hear. Could you
And
just
the most important part is you really have to be an advocate. And I was great. I have a great wife, and it can be a friend or somebody else, but she was not gonna, she was my advocate when I was my weakest and I couldn't defend myself and didn't have the ability or the acumen to do so. I had somebody who was an advocate for me, and she drugged me. And I mean, she cried in front of I can never tell whether they were crocodile tears or not, but she cried in front of the receptionist because the receptionist said they couldn't see me the day she drugged me to the new neurologist. And she cried and got me to sit down, and we had to wait 4 hours, but we got in. So I learned you have to have somebody in your corner helping you out sometime.
Oh, that's a beautiful sentiment. And even from the very beginning, when you mentioned that you had tried to hide it from your wife, and she knew immediately that that there was something more to not being able to stir up the eggs there.
Mm.
That's beautiful in the sense that she knows you well enough to be able to tell when there's something wrong that you don't even want to admit out loud, perhaps.
Right. Yeah, being honest with ourselves is not always the easiest thing in the world.
Oh, to the point that you made, you've lived a great life and bulletproof, right? We all have, try to put that face on that we can handle everything, but sometimes we need the help.
You
And
do.
uh, and thank you so much for sharing the importance of being an advocate. Could you talk about sort of how many different clinicians you saw and what it took to find the right one for you?
Well, you get to see lots of people when you get a neurological disease, and you get two of them, degenerative neurological diseases. Um, I've seen of course, my GP, you see your neurologist, you see a motions disorder specialist, you see a urologist, you get to see a psychologist. I saw a physical therapist, I saw an occupational therapist. And my father was in his mid 80s when I got diagnosed, and I was taking him to his doctor's appointments and me to my doctor's appointments, and it took all day, 3 days a week to get to all the doctor's appointments and get things done. So you see lots of clinicians that help you with different things. And there was a big help. My physical therapist really helped me. She was my miracle worker and helping me along with my neurologist and saying, you can overcome this. And with drugs, you can get your balance back, but you have to work. And I've always been an active person, but I have to consciously walk 6 miles a day every day, or go play golf or lift weights and do those kinds of things. And so I saw a PT for that too, to help me get in because lifting a 10-pound weight and you got a shaky hand, you have to make sure you do it right so you don't hurt something else. So I've seen lots of those, and they all play a very important part. But the important part is, for me, is making sure that everything funnels back to at least one person. And for me, that's been my neurologist. I make sure everything gets funneled back to her. I check with her, and she's great at emailing and making sure that she got the blood test from my GP, or my GP's asking for the right blood test, so we don't have to do things twice, and talking to everybody. And so I've had lots of help and lots of people to see.
Oh, that's wonderful. And for folks who haven't tried PT, could you describe how you got engaged with it and sort of what the routine looks like?
Well, I went to my PT the first time at my lowest ebb, and I couldn't even hardly get up out of a chair. And she helped me find ways. She emphasized how important it was to keep strength in your core, there's ways to get up that you're cheating and you're not using the muscles you should be using. And she pointed that out, and that's not easy to hear when you're at the bottom and you just want to be better, and you don't want to hear somebody telling you you're going to have to work hard to get better. It's just like, man, give me a pill and make me better. And so, but she put me through and took me through and started with very remedial, putting 10 pennies on the floor and stepping over them and then bending down and picking them up, to where I was running and riding my bike again and skiing and water skiing and those kind of things. So it's not for the weak of heart. A good PT person will challenge you and make you want to yell explicatives at them from time to time. And they can be very frustrating, but it's very, very important because it helps you to use the right muscles and not create other injuries by trying to cheat.
Understandable. And what has been the time commitment for you for PT, and how have you continued with it?
PT has been, when I first started, it was 3 times a week, an hour a day. And then that was just in the PT office. And then you're doing your other stuff. It's your homework, as I would call it. You're going to have to do that for a couple, 3 hours a day too. To now where I see my PT about once every 6 months for an assessment of where I'm at. And it's important it was important to me, and it was important to my neurologist too when we talked about it. We sort of build a baseline, because I wanted to know if I was getting worse, because when I really took that deep plunge off, I wasn't honest with myself or my partners at work or with my wife and my family that I was getting worse, and I just wanted to ignore it. So I wanted a baseline. So I got a good baseline in place. We go check that every 6 months. She makes sure that I'm doing the things that I need to do. And then my time commitment is I have to exercise a couple, 3 hours every day. Because one of the most important things for MS and for Parkinson's disease in particular, because there's really no drug to slow the symptoms, you're just treating the symptoms. Exercise has been found to be the #1 thing. And so I make sure I'm committed. And so every 2 or 3 hours, part of my job every day is I get up and I go for a walk, or I play golf, or I ride my bike, or I go skiing, or whatever it is I do.
That's fantastic. Staying active is great advice, and it sounds like you're able to make the time. A lot of folks I understand with MS have a bit of fatigue. How do you power through those feelings?
When I haven't had much fatigue lately, knock on wood. When I did have problems with that, it was, you just had to physically pick yourself up and go do your things, and it's very, very hard. It takes everything inside your core to tell you to get yourself up when you'd rather assume the fetal position and suck your thumb and take a nap. And so when I had fatigue, but I have found that the more I exercise, the less I have problems with fatigue and brain fog, which are both common in MS and Parkinson's disease.
Understand. Um, and so congratulations, right? You've come through a tremendous amount of challenge, and you've managed to overcome a lot of it, which is astounding, both through the treatments that you've been able to receive, but also the work that you've put in. I know a lot of folks 3 to 4 hours a day is a lot to do, but you're in front of me and you're doing well, and you attribute it to those things. What advice do you have for others dealing with the newness of MS, and what hope and inspiration can you provide to them?
Well, the first thing I'd say is when you get a diagnosis, it's very easy to go to a very dark place. You're going to the worst thing you've ever seen on TV or in the movies, which the movies dramatize these kind of things. And like I tell people all the time, MS is not a death sentence. Parkinson's disease, you don't die of Parkinson's disease, you die with Parkinson's. And it's not a death sentence either. And it'll throw you all kinds of curveballs. Things that, it's very frustrating some days when I can't button my shirt and it takes me 20 minutes to get ready in the morning, where it used to take me 5. And I consciously have to think, if we're getting ready to go to church, I have to get dressed a half an hour before everybody else. And things like that. And so, but it's not a death sentence. There's drugs. Medicine is important on both sides as far as slowing MS and actually stopping the progression of MS. They have drugs for that. That's what Rituxan and Tecfidera is. And on the PD side, we can treat the symptoms with Sinemet, and there's deep brain surgery stimulation that goes with it. And so there's lots of things that can help and improve your quality of life. So don't freak out and just try to take the system day by day. And the other important part is that I've learned, Parkinson's disease and MS has become my frenemy. It's my enemy because I can't do things. I used to be a very, very good skier, and I could ski anything in the world. Today, I have to stay on the groomed run, and I have to go slower than I used to. And that hurts my ego, not any part of my body. And so you have to deal with that. But so it's my enemy from that side. But on the other side, it's my friend. I mean, I know it's there. It's going to be with me with the rest of my life. And it has helped me understand the joys and the grace that I've had in my life. I took lots of things for granted when I was healthy all the time. And I wouldn't wish Parkinson's disease or MS on anything, but I have friends who have ALS, who have pancreatic cancer, and I wouldn't change places with them any day. If I had to pick the disease, I'd take the ones I did, because I still get to live my life, and there's still lots of things I can do. Sometimes I just have to do them differently. So they're not a death sentence, but you have to make friends with your disease and know what your capabilities are, because sometimes I try to push myself too far. And if I find I do things that I used to do, that I could fall and hurt myself and break my arm or break my leg or crack my head open, I can make life a lot harder on my family, and I don't need to do that. So I consciously have to think, am I doing this because of my ego, or am I doing it where I could hurt myself and not do it and make things hard on my family?
Oh, that's great and powerful, and I'm sure your wife and your children appreciate that as well.
What I would tell people too is, when you communicate with your family, um, my kids were just getting in high school or junior high when I got both MS and Parkinson's disease. We have a wonderful relationship. Each one of my children, my wife's been a rock in all of it. Just doesn't, it is what it is, and we're going to live through it, and we're going to have a good life and do our things that we do. For my kids, it's funny. Each one of them has been different. My oldest has the same warped sense of humor that I do. And so she bought me, because of my shake, she bought me a Chihuahua t-shirt for Christmas. It says, "I have Parkinson's disease." And so we make jokes about it and laugh about it all the time. My middle daughter has been my caretaker, who wants to make sure dad's okay and everything's all done, but we have great communication. My teenage son, he's just like, "Well, that's dad, and now I can whoop him earlier than I thought I was going to be able to whoop him, so we'll go from there." So, but we communicate it, and you get people that ask you, the biggest thing is you get people that find out you have Parkinson's disease or MS. And as I've started to semi-retire, I get more and more of that. People come up to you and go, "How you doing?" And sometimes you have to ask, you mean, how am I doing? Or how am I doing? And so some people want to hear a lot about it, but they're afraid to ask about it. And so if you can be as open as you can, and it'll make the journey much easier and make people comfortable, because part of your job becomes right, wrong, or indifferent. Part of my job becomes making other people comfortable when they see me shaking and they don't know why I'm shaking.
No, that's great advice, and certainly openness to others allows us to be open with ourselves in a way.
Yes, it does. That's very, very true.
Wonderful. So Troy, we're at the end of our time today, but I wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Appreciate you sharing your story and your journey. Congratulations again. It sounds like you're living a great life in spite of what you've had to deal with, and that you have the love and support of a wonderful family. And I wish you all the best moving forward. and I'd love to stay in touch. So thank you so much.
Well, I'd love to stay in touch too, and anything I can do to help you, let me know. And this has been a great experience for me.
Oh, thank you so much. And as soon as the video is edited and posted, I will share the link with you so that if anyone you meet, with MS or with Parkinson's who just wants to know a little bit more about your journey, you can feel free to share it with them. And hopefully through sharing our stories and the things that we've overcome, everyone gets to get that much further on their own journey. So thank you so much, Troy. I appreciate it.
Have a great day in Seattle.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a beautiful day. Thank you. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.